It's Aleya Antoine. You're listening to Tease podcast.
Everyone loves a tease. Stop.
Don't get too excited. We're all hanging out. We're all talking, right? Stacy had finally stopped calling me, stopped texting me. And we're talking at this cafe. And I look up. And Stacy is standing right in front of me. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Tease podcast. It is so great to be back with you guys. We are on episode 13, lucky number 13, and it's really crazy because I am recording this the day before Friday the 13th. So either that's really good or like there's something going on and the stars are glitching. I don't really know. Either way, we have hit over 600 views on one of the episodes and over 11,000 views on the YouTube. Y'all have been commenting, and it's honestly so crazy because when I started this, my whole goal is that I want people to listen to the podcast. I want to build that community and everything. But there is something funny of going from the switch up to not hearing anything to suddenly you're seeing these numbers and people are telling you what they think about the episodes, and it's just so weird to be perceived, I guess. I'm like, oh my god, you're actually listening? You actually listen to this? It's just really crazy to hear because on social media you just see the numbers, right? You see someone's followers, you see someone's likes, you see someone's views, and you just see numbers. And then to hear the real voices behind those numbers always trips me out just a little bit because I'm like, oh my god, it's not just numbers, there's people. I remember even I was at this event a couple months ago and this girl was like, oh, I follow you on Instagram and I like this and this, and I was thinking, oh my god, you do? What? I don't know. I think it's something about doing things online when you hear about it in person or you hear real-time feedback or from real people. It's your mind has to cross over from a numbers game to this is real life, you know what I mean? So I love that y'all are loving the show, and I hope to keep hearing from you guys. This is really exciting. I feel so dorky saying that, but this is really exciting. As far as the life update, there's really not much going on since the last time we spoke. I have just been working, trying to build that savings back up. Nothing's really happened on my shifts except 2 days ago. One of my coworkers, he was like, hey, Aleya, can you make me a margarita and a beer? Because I was on bar. And I was like, yeah, of course, I got you, right? So I'm pouring the beer, making the margarita, and he seemed pretty urgent. So I was trying to do it as fast as I can. I put them on the well to get picked up. It's been 5-10 minutes. No one picks it up. And I'm like, hey, okay. Turns out he got arrested during our shift. So that was definitely different and interesting. It was also extremely sad. There's really never a boring day in the restaurant service or in customer service. I don't know how, but it's just always so surprising. But after I recorded last week's episode, I was just feeling very, I wasn't feeling proud of it. Now, I'm talking about right after I recorded. So, right when I turned off the camera, right? I was just having, I guess you call it, creative blues. If you're a creative person or you have your own business or, maybe you're even writing an essay for school, just whenever you have to come up with things on your own, I feel you either wrap it up feeling oh my god, that was the best thing ever, I'm in love with it, or you feel oh my god, that was absolute shit. I think athletes feel this too. You have a game, you have a performance or whatever, and you're just I didn't do good. And it doesn't matter what actually happened. It's just your own mind does that to you. So I was feeling really down and out after that episode, and I was just spiraling. I laid on the couch. It was just what am I doing? I don't know, just this wave of depression and negative thoughts hit me. So I got in my car and I booked it to the bookstore because I was I need a self-help book. That is how I solve my problems. I am a huge book nerd. I'm not so much like, I won't really read a novel. I'd rather watch a TV show. But if you hand me a psychology book, I will read it cover to cover. If you hand me any sort of self-help book, psychology, something to do with communication styles, I am all up in it. I don't know what it is, but I went to Barnes and Nobles because they were having like this 50% off thing, got a self-help book, and was like, what the fuck is going on? And I realized that whole episode I was talking about like being cynical and like having these negative thoughts around like people and social situations, right? Like where you just feel down and out after a bad day and you're like, I need to clock out and just stay home for a little bit. But I realized that the emotion that I didn't touch on that I was feeling, probably because I didn't even realize it, was loneliness. I think the reason why I didn't touch on it is because, one, I hadn't really thought of it or accepted it myself. And two, it is really difficult to admit that you're feeling lonely or alone. And I could say that that's kind of how I've been feeling lately. I think that a lot of people, especially in your 20s, experience loneliness, but you never want to really admit it because it just feels so embarrassing, because this is an age where you're supposed to be out with your friends all the time. You're supposed to be doing these crazy experiences, having these new life goals happen for you, being in this awesome relationship, traveling. Like, that's how people make it seem, and that's how you see on the movies, on social media. So to say that you're lonely, it kind of feels like you're doing everything wrong, you know what I mean? And I think that the overall feeling of being lonely just has like so much negativity to it. Like, I honestly would say that goes back to childhood. Like, when you think about being alone as a kid, it was never really a choice. It was just a bad thing that happened to you. So for example, like, let's say you have the only child and their only friends at home are their parents, or the kid who's sitting alone at lunch with no friend group, or the person who gets picked last for dodgeball, or you're the one single friend and all of your friends are in relationships. Like, we always attribute being alone as something that's incredibly negative. So to admit that you're alone a lot or that you feel lonely feels like you're kind of a failure in a sense. I say this as someone who, like, when I'm with my friends or something, like, I am posting the fuck out of it. You probably would be confused as to why I'm saying this, but I think some of the reasons why I've been feeling it lately is that, like, I lost a childhood friend. Like, we had been friends for 7 years. We're not friends anymore. I used to have like this big friend group. Don't talk to a lot of them anymore. Like, it's just like, I am normally used to being overstimulated with conversation and with experiences. Like, when I worked at Twins, I was friends with all of my coworkers, and it wasn't friends like, oh, we're at work together. No, like, we hung out outside of work. I would hang out with them before work. I had 2 other roommates. Like, I was literally never alone, even when I was quote unquote alone. Like, maybe it's just me in my room, but I know that my best friend is down the hall or 2 doors away, or she's coming home soon. Me and Kai were doing long distance, and so I was always traveling, having these new experiences. The relationship was still like so fresh, you know what I mean? And then when I moved to Seattle, I like had this new friend group. Me and my other friend always FaceTime. Me and my friends here always FaceTime. And now don't really FaceTime that often. All of my summer plans, like visiting home, going on vacation, like, my summer plans are pretty much done. Like, of course I have upcoming things, but it's not like that fun summer stuff that you look towards now. You know what I mean? Like, it just feels like I'm not overstimulated and oversaturated with communication. And I always thought that would feel like a good thing. Like, I always thought, oh, if I just had more time for myself, that's what I need. But now that I have it, I'm like, I don't know what to fucking do. And I think that happens to a lot of us. We want to be left alone by our own choice, but when it's not necessarily your direct decision, then it just feels like, what the fuck? Especially if you're someone who's highly social and extrovert and normally is used to being surrounded by people. Like, I would say that a lot of people probably experience this when they move to a new place, when they just get out of school, when they go through a friendship breakup, when they go through a relationship breakup. You're like, what am I gonna do by myself? And I started to think, and I was like, well, is being alone really a bad thing? When you see the person going to a restaurant and eating by themselves, do you feel bad for them? Or do you look at them in a sense like, wow, they must really enjoy their own company? Because here's the thing, I know a lot of people who are never alone, but would probably hate to be alone because they don't enjoy their own company. And I think that being alone or being lonely doesn't necessarily need to be a bad thing if you were to actually like build a good, healthy relationship with yourself and kind of like toss out all those external pressures. I don't know if anything I'm saying makes sense, but what I'm trying to say is that why does being alone have to be negative? Is it possible that being alone or being lonely can be positive? And I think that it can have positives. I even remember that I used to do this series on my Instagram, right? And I used to call it Solo Dates. And I started that because, again, I was oversaturated with always being around my friends, that whenever I would even have like an hour alone, I would be like so uncomfortable. I would always feel sick to my stomach. Like I needed to go on Instagram or I needed to FaceTime someone. Like I needed to always be constantly talking or interacting with someone. So I was going to therapy and me and my therapist were talking about it and she was like, you need to do more activities alone. So I decided to start doing this series called Solo Dates. I haven't done it in a while just because I haven't had time. But I remember I went to the Museum of Glass in Tacoma and I was so excited because I was like, oh my God, I went to an art museum by myself. I got content there, took pictures. It felt like such a vibe. I met like these two random girls. We had a whole conversation. Like I thought, oh my God, this is what like adulting's like. Like you're doing that cool like working girl on a run or like when you just see like the cool person enjoying their own company. I posted my content, felt so proud of it. And my friend at the time, she goes, hey, like, these guys that we used to go to high school with sent some of your stuff in a group text. And the thing was, now that I look back at that, I don't really know why she told me because the particular group of guys that she was talking about, I have never been friends with in my entire life. Like, yeah, we went to high school together, but we never spoke. We never hung out. I couldn't tell you anything about them but their names. Not to mention, I know how I was in high school, and this was an entire group of guys where I didn't hook up with not a single one of them. So that is how much, like, I know that, like, they did not affect my life at all, because the fact that there's, like, a big group of you and I didn't hook up with one or two of you, we weren't living in the same life. You know what I mean? Like, you guys were over here and I was over there. We're not interacting. So why they're sending my content, I don't fucking know. But she sends me a screenshot and it says, solo date, ? What a fucking loser. And it was actually the first time in my life being called like a loser with like an actual like them meaning it. Like you and your friends call each other losers, but you're not actually saying it. But like actually being called that, it made me feel a mix of emotions. I'm not gonna lie, it made me kind of feel like shit. But then it also made me kind of be like, why the fuck are they talking about me? But mostly it made me feel like shit. And that just brings me back again to why is doing things alone negative? And I'm going to tell you why doing things alone seems like a negative thing is because the people who make other people feel bad for being alone don't like themselves and don't have the capacity to ever do something alone. They don't have the capacity to be alone. They don't have the capacity to try new experiences, to move to that new state, to meet these new friends on their own. All of these guys that were sending my stuff in a group chat had the exact same friends that they had in high school, had not like pretty much made any major life changes. You know what I mean? I think that the people who make being alone seem like a negative thing are the people who couldn't do it on their own. Because when I think back to when I used to think that being alone was uncool, it was at times where I know damn well that I could have never went to a museum by myself. I could have never went to dinner by myself. I could have never just watched TV alone and not FaceTime someone. I couldn't have gone like a week without talking to my friends, you know what I mean? So it really is that whole thing of like people hate on things that like they're not able to do themselves. And so I think that we need to reframe the phrase of being alone and think of it from like a positive perspective. Like when I think of it from a positive perspective, I think of, you know, that song where it's like riding solo, solo. Like that sounded fun. That sounded cool, but when we hear alone, we think, oh, that's so negative. And honestly, there's times where I probably would have really benefited from not being around some of the people that I was around. Like, I now would rather be at where I am at than like surrounded by opps, surrounded by people who don't actually like me, who don't actually fuck with me. And I'm going to give y'all a little story time for this, because would you rather be alone or would you rather be surrounded by people who secretly aren't on your team? You know what I mean? So my friends from Texas were visiting Seattle. I think I talked about this in another episode. They were visiting Seattle from Texas. We hadn't seen each other in 5 years, right? And my other friend who lives in Washington, we'll call them Stacy. Stacy was planning to meet up with one of our friends because we were all getting ready to go on a boat together. And the friend that they were meeting up with didn't really know that many people, right? So Stacy calls me and tells me about the dinner that they're planning to have. And I'm like, oh, that's so cute. You know, I'm going to be in the area as well with my friends. And they're like, oh, okay, well, you should come join us for dinner after if you have any time. I wanted to just kind of warn her about some of the people that are going to be there. And I was like, wait a minute. Is this like a wholesome dinner or is this like a shit talking dinner? Because here's the thing. I've said this before and I've said this again. Everyone gossips. Everyone talks about people that they know. I don't think that's an inherently bad thing when you're not actually trying to like shit talk or be negative. It's just you talking about like experiences that you had. You know what I mean? Like that's whatever. But if you're like actually planning like a dinner to warn or shit talk about your supposed friends, that's when I'm like, okay, that's fucking weird behavior. So then I was like, you know what? I think that I'm going to actually be with Gabby and Fatima like a lot longer than I thought that I was going to be with. Maybe I'll be able to meet you, but maybe I won't. So I ended up going to brunch with Gabby, my friend from Texas, and her friend. We're having a nice time. We're eating, and I get like 3 calls and like 5 texts from Stacy, like, are you coming? Are you coming? Are you coming? And I'm like, dude, like I told you, I don't know. I told you I'd let you know. And just over and over and over again, just calling me, messaging me. And I'm like, hey, like I'm hanging out with my friends that I haven't seen in 5 years. Like, please stop calling me. You know what I mean? And I think one of the reasons why I said I don't know instead of saying a hard no or hard yes was because one, a part of me just like wanted to socialize. And then another part of me didn't want to go because of what that socializing would entail. You know what I mean? After brunch, me and Gabby decide to go get a coffee. We're all hanging out. We're all talking, right? Stacy had finally stopped calling me, stopped texting me. And we're talking at this cafe. And I look up and Stacy is standing right in front of me. And I'm like, hey, what are you doing here? And she goes, oh, well, I saw your location and followed you here. Because I had just gotten done with my dinner with the other girl. And I was like, oh. And at this point, I'm feeling so embarrassed, kind of freaked out. Gabby's looking at me like, what the fuck? And I'm like, I am just going to play it cool. I am not going to act any sort of way. You know what, Stacy? Sit down, have a water with us. Gabby's getting ready to leave anyways, right? And Gabby leaves and everything, and I'm like, still kind of like, okay. But I don't know, for some reason, I think that my fight or flight kicked in, and I feel like in that scenario, the best thing to do is just to play it cool. And you know what? Maybe this was just like an honest mix up. And I'm not trying to think too hard into it. I'm like, you know what? Maybe they just really like me as a friend. Maybe they just really want to spend time with me. Who cares that they tracked my location? We're buddies. It's fine. So we end up hanging out even longer. And they're like, yeah, my dinner with the other girl went really well. I was just warning her about people on the boat and everything. And I was like, hey, you know, like, if you're gonna keep hanging out with everyone on the boat, I don't think that you should be talking shit about them at a whole pre-planned lunch. And she's like, yeah, I know, but you know, I honestly agree with you. I don't want to be fake either, so I'm not gonna be friends with any of them anymore after this. You know what I mean? Like, I'm done with it, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, okay, whatever. The next day, I had talked to Kai about it, and Kai was like livid. Kai was like, why the fuck would she follow you and track your location? Kai's like, we're in a relationship, or like wherever we were at the time, and I wouldn't even do that. And I'm like, you're right, it is a little weird. You know what? Let me just call Stacy up and we'll clear this up. I call Stacy while I'm driving to the hairstylist, and I'm like, hey, I really enjoyed hanging out with you yesterday, but I know how I told you I don't know if I can hang out or anything, and I just really wasn't cool with you tracking me without letting me know or without my permission. Totally fine that we hung out. It's just that you cannot show up when you're not invited. You know what I mean? Especially because, like, with my history with friendships, I did not want Gabby and my friends from Texas to meet anyone that I knew in Seattle. Like, I don't know. I didn't want to mix it up and make it all messy because, I don't know, something just told me keep things separate. And Stacey's like, I'm so sorry. You know, I shouldn't have done that. You're right, blah, blah. And I was like, and also, I don't really agree with the way that you went about lunch with your friends the other day, because I do feel like you shouldn't hang out with people if you're gonna talk about them like that. If you want to continue that friendship and stop shit talking, or if you want to shit talk and end the friendship. But I don't think that you could do both at once, because that's just like hypocritical. And then I go to my hairstylist, I tell her what happened, and my hairstylist is like, Aleya, what the fuck? That is so fucking weird. She's like, what? You didn't scream? You didn't get mad? If someone showed up and like followed me, I would, no matter how much I know them. She's like, if you did that to me, I would cut you off immediately. And I was like, ugh. But my dumbass just let it go, you know what I mean? And Stacy stopped talking to me. Maybe they had their own personal reasons. I'm sure they did. But that's not the point. The point was that the person that Stacy talked about behind their back made a whole lunch over it, right? She is now extremely close friends with. She now hangs out with all the time. She now posts all the time. I don't know what happens in anyone's interpersonal relationships. They could have all talked this out, and that's fine. I don't care. But the thing is that that's a great example of, like, I would rather be alone than have a friend in my life that ever felt the need to make an entire lunch to talk shit about me. And here's the thing. I know damn well that I have had friends that have met up with other people just to talk shit about me, or just to say all their opinions on my relationship, on me as a person, just, you know, A to Z, just run through me, you know what I mean? And that's the thing about being alone that you can look at as a positive, is that you don't have to deal with that anymore. You don't have to deal with that happening to you. You don't have to worry about people talking to you. And I'm not saying this as you should be alone and stay alone. I'm saying in those periods which we all go through where you're feeling like it's just you, it could be that life is just putting you in a small protective bubble at the moment, and that's okay. You know what I mean? Because it is really shocking that a lot of people can maintain friendships where their heart isn't fully in it. And I know that that's like a thing that a lot of people do. Maybe it's for networking, maybe it's for social gain, maybe it's for that. But I think that that's so exhausting, and I wouldn't want that in my life, because here's the thing. I will say that as many like weird, bad, homoerotic, codependent friendships that I've had, there has been really amazing things about each of them. And I know that the reason why I had those friends in the first place was for inherently good reasons. But the clock ran out when the good ran out. Like, even my friendship with Stacey in the story, you know what I mean? There were so many good things about it. But eventually, sometimes it just happens that you just reach the maximum point. That's all the good that will come out of it. And now it's time for the new phase of your life. It's normal for people to come and go. And that is also something that I had to learn at this age, because I have always had like this super like big fear of like, when you fall in love with someone, whether that's like romantic love or just like a friendship love, like when you start loving people, you're gonna have to eventually go through the part where they're no longer with you, no matter why that happens, you know what I mean? And I used to always think like, that's so fucked up. Like, no, every single friend that I make is going to be in my life forever, and we're gonna be friends for life, forever friends, right? That doesn't always happen. Relationships don't always happen like that. And that's okay. All that means is that you need to always consistently have a strong relationship for yourself. That way, in those in-between moments, those transition moments, you are okay. You don't feel like you're spiraling. Because here's the thing. When you are uncomfortable being alone, that's when you can get yourself into dangerous situations. That's when you lower your standards and you choose a partner, you choose a friendship, you choose a relationship that may not be good for you, and you just choose it simply to fill that void. I have had so many friends where I'm like, hey, like, you don't even like this person. Why are you dating them? Well, you know, I don't want to be alone, so... Like, that's terrible. We should be able to spend time with ourselves and that just be simply okay. And I think a great way to start your journey of being comfortable with yourself is getting to know yourself. The same way that you would get to know a friend, the same way that you would get to know a partner. I think the reason why a lot of us are uncomfortable being alone is because we just don't know ourselves. We don't know who we are. We don't spend time with ourselves. And so I, of course, wrote down a list on my notes apps of different ways that you can get to know yourself, different ways that you can spend time with yourself, and different ways that you can have fun being alone, being solo, and not lonely, because being alone can be cool. So this is what I wrote down. Ways to not feel lonely. The first one that I wrote was book with questions to get to know yourself. Okay, so this is actually the book that I picked up when I went to Barnes & Noble's during my mental spiral. It's called This Is Me, 1001 Questions to Learn More About Yourself. I got this book, honestly, to keep sparking my creativity for the pod, but it has amazing questions. It's literally just a journal basically filled with prompts to get to know you. And I just want you to think to yourself, do I know these answers about myself? Because when I started reading some of these questions, I was like, I don't know this answer. I could answer these questions for Kai. I could tell you exactly what I think that they would say. But for myself, I was like, So just kind of think, do I know that answer? Yes? No. Just going to rapid fire them. What is your happiest memory from childhood? What momentums of the past have you kept over the years? Do you consider yourself to be self-confident? What is your relationship with self-confidence? Have you ever had a second home? What is something that you've wanted but realized that you didn't need? What was elementary school like for you? What's the house chore that you dislike the most? What sound do you dislike the most? What smell do you like the most? How do you blow off steam? What do you prefer, the heat or the cold? What's your favorite spread, peanut butter or jelly? Do you believe in the one? What's your favorite day of the year? Do you love yourself? What do you do when you get the hiccups? What is something that always takes your breath away? What is your favorite color? What is your favorite candy flavor? Do you like to argue? I like to argue. How would you describe the truth? Do you consider yourself assertive? So it just has a bunch of questions to get to know yourself. And if you're thinking, wait, I don't really know my answer, maybe doing questions like this is good for you. You don't need to get this book. This is not an advertisement at all. I'm sure you could probably just go on Google and type in different questions to ask myself to get to know myself. And that is a great way to start. It's kind of like playing the We're Not Really Strangers game, but with yourself. Another great way to not feel lonely and to get to know yourself, Solo dates, like I said, that I used to do. I loved solo dates and I need to do it again. Don't wait for other people to do things. If you want to see a movie, go see the movie. I literally saw Mean Girls, the new one, alone because all of my friends were busy. Kai had work. My other friend was out of town. So I'm not going to wait on everyone else's schedule. If I really want to go to the premiere and get a signature popcorn bucket, I went by myself. Try out that new restaurant. Go to the bar. As someone who works at a restaurant, we don't judge people who sit alone. It actually happens a lot. Taking photos. That is a great way to not feel lonely. Taking pictures of yourself, taking videos of yourself. Everyone loves making TikToks, doing content, doing Instagram. If that's something that you enjoy, that's a great way to spend time with yourself and to also boost your self-confidence. Make things exciting like you would for a date. Don't just watch TV, pop some popcorn, pour some wine. This is a really good one. You know how whenever you plan a date with someone, you make it special and you put on candles, you have popcorn, you have wine, but when it's just you, you're like, I guess I'll just lay here and do this. No, put time, put thought into it. I had been wanting to watch the Sex and the City movie because I finally finished the show. I decided to reserve like 2.5 hours of my time, smoked like 2 bowls, popped some popcorn. This was all before work. And I just watched the movie. I didn't just lazily look at it on the iPad while I was just laying on the couch. Like, I actually put thought into it. Like, when you do that, you're signaling to your brain, I am worthy of the extra effort. Repeat after me. I am worthy of the extra effort. Go to Trader Joe's. Get you a bottle of their $4 to $5 wine because that is always the best one. Go on walks. Walks are proven to stimulate the brain. Going on walks is a great way to feel less lonely and to spend time with yourself. Being in nature in general just brings this sort of comfort. I think it's because when you go on walks and when you go out in nature, you see a lot of other people there alone. So it kind of feels like you're all kind of there together. And it also just reminds you of like, there's even beauty outside of the population. There's beauty that's just here on earth that's simply for our enjoyment, for our visualization. And it makes you feel like you're part of something bigger than you. I guess that's how I would word it when I'm around nature. Like, it feels like, wow, I am just a speck in this beautiful, beautiful land that we're on. Like, my favorite place to walk is always by the ocean to just like watch the tides, the sun shining, your body soaking up the vitamin C and D, you know what I mean? So going on walks, being in nature is a great way. I'm literally going to Mount Rainier this weekend and I'm so excited because I really want to see a little mammoth and a waterfall. Okay, another way is books. If you're a reader, a book is a great way. I know that school killed books for a lot of us. Like, I used to be such a big reader until I started having reader requirements in school. So maybe just find one genre that will actually hook you. Like, for me, it's psychology books. That is one book that I know for sure I will read. I think that it's good too because it's easy on the eyes. There's no blue light affecting or straining your eyes. And it kind of like, when you read a book, you get drawn in. Another way is to listen to a podcast. Hey, babe. Listening to a podcast is really a great way to feel less alone. I like listening to podcasts a lot, especially the ones that make it feel like a conversation. I mean, that's kind of why I wanted to start this podcast, is for all of you guys. So that way we all feel like we are on this roller coaster together. Another thing is I wrote down, try things that your ex hated. That is a great one. You know how your ex never wanted to go to a pottery class with you? Do it. You know how your parents never wanted to go to Target with you? They only shopped at Walmart? Finally, you can go to Target. You know how your best friend or your roommate never wanted to do XYZ with you? Now is a great time to do it. Think about things that you've always wanted to do, and then you finish a sentence off with, yeah, you know, I always wanted to go skydiving, but my boyfriend never wanted to go with me. Girl, if you don't get up and go do it now. Do it because you want to do it. Don't, again, wait for other people. Okay, another way to feel less lonely, walking around naked at home. Don't side-eye me. Walking around naked at home actually is really good for your health. I wrote down the benefits too. It says that it can increase your body connection because spending time nude can help you get in touch with your body and bodily sensations. So when you're naked, all you feel is like your body sensations, and it helps actually build confidence in your body as well. And it helps with self-acceptance. It can reduce shame, and it helps with your body image. It actually says that spending time nude can help women battle body image issues. If you can't be alone naked, how are you going to have sex with another person naked? Starts with you. Every relationship starts with the very first relationship, which is with yourself. Another one that I wrote is get yourself gifts. I highly believe in getting yourself gifts. You know how people always say, yeah, I can spend money on my friends or my parents or people that I love. I could spend $80 on them and it's cheap, but on myself, I'm like, I would never. I think it's okay, as long as you're not spending your money crazily, to sometimes get yourself gifts. You deserve it. You did a great job. You finished the day. You got through life. You made the money. So why not get yourself something? So those are my ways to feel less lonely when you're alone and to also just get to know yourself. And now I want to do a little swervy swerve to tease me. Questions, stories, advice. Let's get into it. So the first one I got is a story time. I know someone who invited their own friend on a trip to another continent because they believe that their friend would cheat on their fiance. In parentheses, they wanted her to cheat. That's fucked up. And it's very ironic that this episode is about being alone. This seems like a great story time and advertisement for be careful with who you're around, and maybe you're not around some people for a reason. The next one that I got is, how long is too soon to go out on dates? I've been talking to someone for like 2 weeks and I'm ready, but I think that they might think it's too soon. Okay, so basically this girl is talking to someone and she's wanting to know when can they go on a date, but she's scared that the other person will think it's too soon. Girl, I am going to tell you something that will rock your world. It is never too soon to go on a date. I do not believe in talking stages. We are too grown for talking stages. I think that as soon as you exchange numbers, as soon as y'all exchange interests, go out on a date. Plan a date. I honestly would encourage y'all to not even talk to someone that much before a first date. So, for example, let's say that you meet someone, you're out in the public, you meet someone the old-fashioned way, right? You exchange numbers. Text back and forth for maybe 1 day, maybe 2 days. Next thing you know, plan a date. Do not text for over 2 to 3 days. If you text for a week, there is a great chance that you are never making it out the chat. If you meet on a dating app, again, you exchange numbers, you start talking, talk for 1 or 2 days, and then plan a date. If the date is a week from now, yes, it's okay to talk little bits by little bits in between, but do not have full-fledged conversations for like 2 weeks before hanging out with someone. Because one, what are you going to talk about on the first date? You're going to just talk about everything all over again that you already talked about. Not to mention, talking stages are just a fucking waste of time, because what if you got on the date and you don't actually like them? Now you've already spent a whole month on this one person. So my advice to you is plan the date right now. Plan it ASAP. It is never too soon. And initiating a date really shows that you're going for it. And yes, I know there's circumstances to where you can't immediately go on a date. For example, me and Kai, we met on dating apps, right? We exchanged numbers. We had, I would say, 1 or 2 conversations. But I was all the way in a different city. Kai was in a different city. So we did not speak. We maybe said, hi, what's up, hello, every once in a while. And then we didn't talk again until Kai said, hey, do you want to come over to my Airbnb? Then I was like, sure. We talked for 1 day and then I went over. But imagine if we were to have talked from when we matched for a whole fucking month and then hung out. It would have been like, hi, I think I know you, but I don't know you, but like we talked a lot, but like we've never met in person. You get in that weird limbo where you're like, hey, I feel like I know you, but I really don't know you. You know what I mean? we also live in a world where social media is so prominent that like it's really hard to keep that mystery in relationships. So try your best to do that, because you can already find out so much about someone on social media. Don't spoil the authentic conversations and the authentic getting to know each other by overly talking before you have actually landed in person. So, girl, I think that you should go out on the date. Don't be shy. And you told me that you want to go out on a date. If you want to do it, then do it. Then ask them. That is completely up to you, and don't wait and base your life on what another person's thinking. If they don't want to go out on a date with you, well, now you know, okay, I can move on and you don't deserve me at all. You know what I mean? But if they want to go out on a date and it's great, why delay that? Why delay the sparks, the romance, the love? I say make it out the chat and go ahead and do it. That is all that I have for you guys today. I already dropped the Tease playlist, so be sure to tune in. Drop your song requests too that you want me to add to it. Be sure to rate and review on Apple and Spotify. Please subscribe, follow the show, and I will see you guys next Tease Tuesday. I love you guys. And if you're the girl who wrote in the question, please let me know how the date goes. I want to hear about it. Bye, guys.